前、裏切んのか?
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Punk Hazard. So normally, this is 46 chapters long, and normally I would say that I would split this video up into, or this arc up into 2 videos, because 46 chapters really is more than I can comfortably read in a single week. But I got to the halfway point where I should be splitting the arc up, and I just didn't have a lot of thoughts. Honestly, the first half of this arc, I felt not great about. I didn't really like it that much. And I'm so glad that I decided to just push through, take really a whole day of nothing but reading the second half of the arc and do it all in one video. I'm really glad I did, because the second half of the arc was a lot better than the first half, and I have a lot to we can actually talk now. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my overall thoughts on the arc here at the beginning, and then we'll get into like the discussion of the arc. Really, my overall thoughts on this arc are positive. I did end up enjoying it, especially the second half of the arc. I thought was a lot of fun. I would say that if I were to put an order on these arcs, which I'll do someday, but today, if I were to put an order on them, I would say Punk Hazard would probably make my bottom 5, and not because I didn't like it. I honestly don't think that there's been an arc yet in One Piece that I've just not liked. There have been some that have had, you know, more mixed feelings, and I think Punk Hazard falls into that category of, I have some mixed feelings about it, but overall, I thought it was fun to read, and I think blitzing through the whole thing in 1 week was really profitable for me, because it dragged. So reading it in a snappy way, man, week to week on this one must have been rough. But overall, I do have positive feelings about it, because while I do have some very distinct complaints about this arc, I do think that it was a lot of fun. I think that there was a lot of great action. We had some amazing characters introduced or reintroduced that we got to spend some great time with. We had some amazing character moments for our crew. And the setup for this arc is great. So we're in Dressrosa. You know, you look at a name and you say it in your head so many times, and then when it's time to say it out loud, you realize you have no idea how to say it. Dressrosa. That's what I'm going to go with. The Dressrosa arc. This was the first arc in the Dressrosa saga. And it was set up for this really long arc that's to come, right? And I think it did a really good job of that setup. I'm at the end of Punk Hazard looking back, and I feel like I can see a very clear direction for what we're gonna do in Dressrosa. It's Oda, so I'm sure I'll be surprised around every corner, and I'm sure half the things that I think are going to come are not actually going to come. But I do think that this is great setup. In fact, I think that this arc not only is really good setup for the upcoming arc, but I feel like there are things that are set up in this arc that Oda will not be paying off for hundreds of chapters to come. And I'll talk about that at some point in this review, probably, maybe. I think that he did a really good job of laying mystery, slowly giving us answers to that mystery, and then also leaving us with a whole lot of questions still unanswered that he gets to slowly answer and fulfill for us later on down the road. So it was a really good setup arc. I actually feel I come out of it feeling really positive, because I feel like there's a lot to come from here. But as far as reading it in and of itself as an isolated thing, it was long. I do feel like there were quite a few things in there that just didn't even really need to be there. Like, did it serve that much of a purpose to the arc? And I think that's really my main complaint. While I do have some nitpicks all over the arc, I think that my main thing is, you know, there's 46 chapters, and it could probably have been like 25 to 30 and been the same thing. But with that being said, I do think that it had some really strong points. I think the characters that we get to spend a lot of time with are really, really strong here, and as far as character moments for people that we get to hang out with outside of our crew, amazing. Character moments for our crew, amazing. Like I said, a lot of setup, a lot of promises to come, and I think that's really the strongest part about the arc, the character work and the setup. I do think as far as the world building goes, it was on the weaker side as far as One Piece arcs tend to go, and as far as pacing, it was rough. I do love where this arc starts with a fake out, making me believe that Laboon is here, and it's stupid that I fell for it. It doesn't make sense. Laboon can't be here right now. We know where Laboon is, and we know he can't get to the Grand Line. Yet here I am seeing what looks like Laboon and screaming about as loud as Brooke is. Actually seeing them and then seeing Brooke's reaction to them, calling out to Laboon, singing to him. Oh my goodness, it's so emotional, and I felt like I was on that roller coaster right there next to Brooke. And what a beautiful and satisfying introduction to establishing that we've actually entered the new world by seeing Laboon's family, or a colony that looks like Laboon, the same type of whale. Anyway, in typical Oda fashion, in the end of the last arc, Oda told us, old log pose dead, new log pose, looky here, new mechanics, looks really cool, this could be fun adventures, we're not going to use it. In fact, we're just going to go to another island that the log pose isn't even pointing to. And then after we're done with this island, we're also not going to follow the log pose, we're just going to go to Dressrosa because law says so. And I just, Oda, this is who you are, and I still am not quite used to it. The new log pose looked really cool. It looked like we were going to watch Nami navigate these new treacherous waters and see all the different directions that we could go, and have Luffy and the crew fight over which needle they're gonna follow. And no, we're gonna go off the map. Because of course we are. Anyway, the first couple chapters of this arc I really, really loved. So the Ice Navy guy and the Lava Navy guy, you know, they had this battle, which we learned about in the last arc. And now we know that this was their fighting ground because something happened 4 years ago that caused all life to cease on this island, and now it's just a wasteland, so we think. And so these two Navy admirals that are at odds go to duke it out here, and that's why this island looks like this. That's why it's half ice and half fire, because they changed the climate with the epicness of their fight. That's really cool. That's a really, really cool ground laying of this island. I love that lore. I love that that is why where we are now looks the way it looks. I love that. And while it was really fun, the gags of them going from being absolutely boiling hot to freezing cold and all the shenanigans that come with this very ridiculous climate on this island. So I really like these extreme weather conditions, and they're having to go through both of them, and in both of them it seems unsurvivable. They're very they're just these extreme wastelands, which is cool. But you know, a lot of this arc takes place in Caesar's lab, and that wasn't visually interesting in the slightest, and kind of all looked the same. And yeah, I don't know, just the crew was split up for a lot of it, but it all kind of, no matter which crew we're in the midst of, no matter which room we're with who, no matter which part of the crew we're with, I never really could get my bearings in this laboratory because it all just looked like a laboratory, which I guess is pretty accurate, except for this like creepy room that reminded me a lot of this manga that I said I would read with my friends and have been sorely neglecting. I'm sorry, guys. But you know how like that whole, I don't know if you've read this, you know how that whole setting is like this children's room, but it has this very dark undertone and everything actually feels kind of depressing. That's where I felt like I was. Anyway, we also got to fight a dragon here in the first couple of chapters, which I love. Listen, it's kind of become a running joke on my Patreon because I tend to just throw off the wall things out into the chat because this is an off-the-wall series, and I don't really ever mean it, but every now and then it comes true. And I did this at the end of Fishman Island. Somebody was talking about how they didn't love Fishman Island to the extremes that I do, and I mentioned, well, I think it would be difficult to love it to the extreme that I do. This arc seemed to be made for me. Add dragons and I'll foam at the mouth. And here we are with dragons immediately. They did eat it. You know what? I think that's a big part of why I struggled with this arc in the beginning, is because we're introduced to this amazing setting with dragons, and I'm here thinking, oh my golly, we're gonna befriend dragons and maybe become dragon riders, but instead we're on Daycare Island in a laboratory. And I just We're introduced to Mr. Samurai Fella, which I really, really like him because I like how openly annoyed the crew is with him. And I have a lot of thoughts around him, actually. We'll come back to him. But he's a fun introduction because he's in pieces and because there's a lot of mystery around him that I had a really fun time trying to untangle. And I really like his dynamic with the crew. And then, of course, the whole gag of Luffy pulling his butt and legs out of the dragon and then claiming it as his own, and his love for his extra legs. It was a fun time. This whole plotline with the kids, it really took me a long time to really care at all about them, which is weird because you would think that I would be. I'm very outspoken, that one of the things that just gets to me is mistreatment of children. And it's something that this entire arc kind of revolves around desperate mistreatment of children, so I should be attached to them, but honestly, I just wasn't. It's weird because I think that Oda does such a great job of writing characters and side characters so well, including children, to where I only need a couple of scenes from them and I'm deeply attached to them. But for whatever reason, I just don't really feel like much character was put on any of these kids until quite a bit later in the arc. So for the most part, I love our crew's goodness here, where they're trying to protect the children even though it's an impossible situation. There's no way that they can feasibly protect them in the midst of the chaos that's happening, but they decide, no, this is our priority, we're going to. And we're introduced pretty early on that it's really dark stuff that's going on. I mean, it's hinted really early on that there's really dark stuff going on with these kids, and here I am just like, they just feel very cardboard to me. They don't seem to have any personality attached to them at all until like the end of the arc. So by the end, I was pretty happy with it, mostly because that one kid, we'll get to it. But I don't know. I think a big part of me not liking this arc as much in the beginning is because I just don't really feel like Oda put that much into making the kids feel like they had any sort of personality to them. And so here I am, like, this is something that I should be fully invested in, but I don't really care about these kids. Let's get back to the dragons. But who else is on this island? Smoker and Tashigi. Because Smoker is after Luffy, and because Oda knows that I love this duo, and he knows that I need more of them in my story. And I was not disappointed. They had some great dynamics between them. I'm so happy for them both that they've had promotions. It's been really fun to very slowly see how the world has changed around us in this 2-year time skip, and how people that I know, like what positions they're in now. I'm so happy for both of them that they have promotions. I'm so happy for both of them that they're still working very, very closely together. I love their dynamics. I love especially Smoker's dynamic with Luffy and Tashigi's dynamic with Zoro. And this arc was filled with those, and I'm so happy about it. And also, Law is here. I'm so happy about this too. Law is a character that from his very first introduction on the Knot Island, he has been someone that has just been very interesting. Oda is so good at taking a character, giving them just minimal scenes, and making them so compelling from the start. He's memorable. He was the one that stood out to me the most in this group of the Worst Generation when we first were introduced to all of them. And then whenever he went and saved Luffy and Marineford, tended to his wounds, got him out of there when he was gonna die, and then left him. And it just, I love that back on the Knot Island, Law told him, next time we meet, we'll be enemies. And now here we are with them making an alliance. And the alliance is amazing because I love the dynamic between Law and Luffy so much. Law being such a serious boy and Luffy being Luffy adds up to a lot of wonderful scenes of Law just really being shocked at what it's like to be Luffy's friend. Plus, Law has the most incredible powers, and between being able to what's the language that they use to describe his powers? He can warp reality. I don't remember the language they use, but he can disrupt reality, change reality somehow. He can also teleport. He can lift things up in the air and throw them around. I mean, like, it's limitless. It's not, but it feels limitless. And his powers are so cool, and it's so fun to see him in action. This also leads us to an amazing fight between Law and Smoker, which was so great. This is what I'm talking about. There were some really great fights in this arc, and most of them involved Law and Smoker instead of our crew. But our crew had really good fights too. But the fight between Law and Smoker, ending in Law taking Smoker's heart, and the whole, oh my golly, everything actually, like Law, the fact that he is a warlord now, I'm so happy for him that he's moving up in life too. He's a warlord now, and he got here because he stole 100 hearts of other pirates and gave them to the world government so that they would give him this promotion. That's terrifying. And then we actually see it in action in this arc, and we see how he does it. He puts it in Jell-O, I've decided, because it's not established what he puts it in, and it looks like Jell-O. And I just, he is full of incredible one-liners himself. He is so cool. His fights are so awesome, and his dynamic with Luffy is so funny. I'm thrilled. I feel like the entire first half of this arc, where I wasn't really enjoying the arc, Law carried it. Oh, Law also did the body swap. I would like to ask you why. I would like to ask you why you did this thing. Was it just to cause confusion because you didn't want to bother? Is that why you did it? I would like to know. I was both nervous and excited about this body swap. Nervous because it's Oda, so I know that we're gonna have this kind of stuff happening. But also excited because I thought, oh, maybe them being in each other's bodies means that they're going to deeply misuse each other's powers. And I was not disappointed in that. There were scenes of absolute pure chaos. There was so much funniness that came from this in individual interactions and in entire crew interactions, and it was so fun. Smoker and Tashigi also swapped bodies, which I think was significantly less fun, though we did get this great scene with Luffy fighting each of them and him being confused at Smoker's weakness, and then his scream that I feel like I can hear through the page when Tashigi fights him, or when Smoker fights him in Tashigi's body. So I want to talk more about characters since we're on a roll. So we'll talk about antagonists now. Caesar is one of them. And Caesar, who I like to call the fake clown, Buggy, you don't worry, you're still the best. He kind of surprised me because he wasn't, and I figured he was going to be an antagonist that was going to be pretty disappointing. I figured he was going to be pretty weak, pretty nothing. He actually ended up being pretty intense. I don't know how I feel about him at this point, honestly, because he really surprised me at how powerful he was and how conniving and horrible he was. But at the same time, he's not cool. So, he's no crocodile. But he's very smart and conniving villain between abducting children, experimenting on them by trying to, grow giants as the world government has been trying to do, but he's figured out the correct way to do it by using growing children. His detachment from those children, viewing them as expendable, knowing that they will die, and just using them as basically a means to push the limits and see how far the experimentation can go, as far as I understand, knowing that he'll then need to kidnap more children and continue the experiments with the next set of lives that are expendable to him, which life in general is quite expendable to him. He, as well, around every single corner, is sacrificing his own men in order to do what he wants to do, because really everyone around him, except for his inner circle, are all expendable in his eyes, which makes him a really good villain in that way, and has come up with some really creative, smart ways to face off against people, like depleting them of their oxygen in the middle of a fight. That's really clever and terrifying and really hard to beat. That's another thing he was doing. He was drugging these children, and they were going through these withdrawals, and he was ruthless around every corner. He's also very smart, Vagapunk. Vegapunk. Taking this thing with this other doctor guy, who's basically become a household name at this point. Oda really wants me to remember Vegapunk. Anyway, he took this thing that he found, turned it into Sad, who Doflamingo is turning into Smile, which is creating fake zone fruits, which is really awesome. That's so interesting that we're doing this, that we now have fake devil fruits that turn people into zone types. Like, that's so... Zoan? Am I saying that wrong too? That's so cool. And then you also get, coupled with all that, the fact that his secondary villains were actually really great too. Hamburger Face reminds me a lot of that one guy from Skypiea who had to be reminded not to roll his eyes back in the back of his head, and that in order to speak he has to open his jaw. I'm sure you guys remember him. He reminds me of that guy with how he's constantly losing things on his face. Why? So he has a funny gag, but really he's also extremely powerful, and his fights were great as well. And his fight with Sanji. Sanji's injured, by the way. We'll get to it. He was a great secondary antagonist, but really the antagonist that shone in this arc was Monet. Her steadfast loyalty to Caesar, her many abilities, when she transformed into that demon creature that was so cool. She had some fantastic fights. She had a really compelling villainous energy to her. I think her personality was so fun. And the scene where Law swapped the hearts and Caesar thought he was killing Monet, but really he ended up Caesar thought he was killing Smoker, but really he was killing Monet, was so sad because she's a villain that I really like. And it's Oda. She's probably not dead. By the way, it was confirmed in one of the cover stories of this arc too that Bon Clay is not dead. Anyway, I really like Monet, so this is a fake out death that I really wouldn't mind. And then, of course, the most significant villain in this arc is a background villain who I assume is going to take center stage in the following arc, and that's Doflamingo. Someone that I deeply hate already. And this is really good writing, because I hate this man to the extent that as I'm reading this arc, I could be smiling and having a great time, and then I turn the page, well, it's electronic, and Doflamingo is on the next page, and there's a physical anger that washes over me because I hate this man so hard, which means that he's probably going to be a really fun villain, because I'm not going to feel like Caesar, where it's like, wow, you're powerful and you're doing cool things, but I don't really care that much about you as a person. But Doflamingo is powerful, has a lot of power, is conniving and evil, and also I hate him on such a visceral level. He'll be a compelling villain. I hate him so much. Doflamingo's henchmen so far aren't interesting at all. I really liked Baby 5 at first when she was trying to kill Doflamingo, but she ended up being kind of like a gimmicky thing. And what's the other one? Buffalo? Buffalo seems cool, I guess. I don't know. I don't care about them. Oh, and then also there was the slime. Now the slime is another thing that I just didn't care about in this arc, even in the slightest. But it did display what Caesar was ultimately doing. It gave us that really cool scene where Caesar was showing everybody on the, not black market, that's the wrong word, I'll remember it later, showing everybody in the video feed this weapon that he's created, and you know, we get to see people being killed by the gas, and we get to see that cold detachment of them just observing a weapon. That was a really good scene. Plus, through this all, we got to see that the devil fruits, that when a devil fruit user like Smiley was using, when they die, the devil fruit reincarnates. I don't know. It takes an apple or a fruit around it and becomes a devil fruit again, which is really neat. That was a really amazing reveal. That's so exciting to me. But I'm cycling through my head thinking about the people that have died, and I'm thinking those devil fruits they're out there somewhere. They're in the world somewhere. We'll come back to that. Anyway, this is pretty disorderly, but Law is trying to team up with Luffy, which I love the start of their alliance. The crew is completely against it. Luffy, of course, is completely for it. And his interaction with Law, when he asks Law, are you going to betray us? And Law's like, no. And Luffy's just happy with that. It's so cute. But anyway, eventually at some point along this arc, we do learn that Law's intentions here are to to go after one of the four emperors. Their goal here is to take down Caesar, or not take him down, but to kidnap him, to leverage with Doflamingo, which will then, I mean, it's quite the chain of events that they're going for, and it was clever and it was smart and it was fun to watch unfold. I also really like that we're going after that one emperor whose name I've already forgotten, because we know the other ones, and this one is someone that I don't know anything about. So I like that, you know, I assumed we were going off after Big Mom, two birds with one stone, right? Luffy declared war on her, Law happens to want to take her down, let's team up, let's do it together. But instead, we're going after this guy who I know nothing about, which is exciting because that means that we get to explore something new, which we would have with Big Mom too, but you know what I mean. It's cool. But it's going to be a really big task, which is why they did so many things. We'll get to it. The worst generation, the rest of them, or most of the rest of them, have also teamed up to also take down one of the emperors. Why? And which one are you guys going for? You're really playing that close to the chest. I would like to know, are you going after Shanks? Please don't go after Shanks. Please go after Big Mom. That way we can all team up in a little while and all go after Big Mom together. But I know it's not going to happen. Oh yeah, another thing that happens in this arc before they end up capturing Caesar is that Luffy is introduced to Momo, which I've been waiting for, you know, because Samurai Guy has been after him this whole time, looking for him this whole time, so I knew we had to find him eventually. And yeah, he's cool. I don't really know him very well yet, but he's a dragon, so I like him. Also, he ate Vegapunk's fake fruit. Oh my god, like there's so many things. You have the devil fruits, you have the smile fruits that Doflamingo is creating from Caesar's sad, which I still don't really know what that is, which was created for Vegapunk's discovery, and Vegapunk is also creating fake devil fruits or manufactured devil fruits that now Momo has. I don't know. There's so much happening. But anyway, the whole arc ends with a big celebration, some heartwarming, really, really sweet scenes. Really, this whole arc is filled with a ton of action, some really emotional stuff, and some really great gags. I mean, it's a fun arc. It just could have been heavily condensed. But the ending scene with, you know, with the kids going off to the Navy, that scene with Nami when she mentions that if they're going to be safe with someone, what was it, a strong and compassionate Navy woman is the best place. She's thinking about her mom. Oh, that's so good. The kids saying goodbye, the Navy really bonding with the Straw Hats. It was all such a lovely end. And then freaking Doflamingo ruined the end. He didn't ruin it. It was great setup. So Law is twisting Doflamingo's arm, bargaining with him. We'll give you back Caesar if you will resign as a warlord. So he resigns as warlord and as king of which is going to lead to a chain of events that will, I mean, there's so much going on here. But I think that Flamingo is going to be our main antagonist of this saga. It just seems like that's where Oda is setting us up to be. So the fact that he stepped down from warlord and king is really curious to me, because I wonder what that means, because he's gonna be our antagonist, right? Like he's set up to be. So how? I don't know yet. But we're all going to Dressrosa, including Samurai and Momo, which should be really fun. Oh, and then also Doflamingo tries to kill Smoker, but Sleepy Navy Guy comes in and saves him. Sleepy Navy Guy, after he lost his fight with Lava Fella, he is now a rogue agent trying to, like, I don't know, do good things. I don't know what his MO is, but apparently Smoker thinks that he has partnered with the Dark World or something like that. I don't know what you mean, but he's so cool and I want him to join our crew. Oh, and Buggy's a warlord. Buggy is a freaking warlord. I'm so happy about this. I'm so proud of my favorite clown. He deserves it. He deserves all the recognition that he didn't deserve. And I'm so happy for him, and I miss him, and I hope that we get to see him soon as a warlord, failing up always. I love Buggy so much. Anyway, I finished on chapter 700. So at the end of chapter 700, we see that the thing that Mingo is trying to, I don't know, persuade, the thing that he has over Luffy's head that Luffy didn't care enough to ask about, well, he did. He thought it was meat. But it is Ace's devil fruit, confirming, in fact, what we saw in the beginning of the arc or the middle of the arc is true, that when a devil fruit user dies, some other fruit transforms into that devil fruit, which destroys my theory about all devil fruits originating in Iva's Island. But I'm so excited about this. I mean, I'm not excited. I'm terrified about this. But this is going to help Mingo be a very, very good antagonist. And I'm not looking forward to how much this is going to hurt Luffy when he notices. Oh, man. Anyway, let's work backwards a little bit now that we've talked through the plot. I really want to spend a little bit of time in this review, probably a lot of time, focusing on characters because, again, I do think that this is where the arc shined. I kind of skipped over Mr. Samurai fella because I have a lot to say about him. So here's the thing with him. I think that Oda does a really good job of indicating which of his characters are significant and will be relevant for the plot for a long time. And and Wano's Samurai is one of those people. In my opinion, I think that he is going to be with us. He is going to be significant for this story for a good chunk of time, so get comfortable with him. I do think that he's really interesting. I think he has great dynamics with the crew, with him constantly irritating them, with him being very unaccustomed to the way they do life, which I have a theory around, with his sense of honor. But there are a lot of indications that, well, first of all, there's a lot of mystery around him, right? Like, we don't know why he's here. We don't know, well, we do know that he came after his son, but there's so little that we know about him. And even the information that he is giving us, like that there's someone in Wano from his crew, from his samurai group that got captured and is in, not Wano, somebody who's in Dressrosa. He's very, very vague. There's just so much mystery around him and not much of it has been solved. He speaks in a very old-timey way. He has an odd language pattern, which indicates to me that he might be a couple hundred years old. That's my theory right now, that I don't know how it is. I don't know how the samurais of Wano are, but maybe they're like elves and they've found a way to not die unless they're killed. So maybe Mr. Wano is a couple hundred years old. His speech patterns indicate some sort of oldness. There's a lot of stuff that he talks to the Straw Hats about that he's very unaccustomed to modern times. That scene with Zoro when he's fighting over Zoro about the sword, because he talks about like the legends of the sword, but he doesn't seem to be talking about it in a legendary manner. He seems to be talking about it as if he's very personally familiar with what this sword has done, and therefore thinks that Zoro must be the man who has wielded it to cause those legends, as if he was there at the time. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of things that indicate that he will be here long term, not just the mystery shrouding him and like the little tidbits of things that we're getting from him that are not being explained at all. But also, I mean, I knew that Wano is the ongoing arc. At least I'm pretty sure it is. So I'm pretty sure we're in Wano right now. I mean, you are. But also there are a lot of really, really subtle crew moments that are happening that Oda is doing to establish him as fitting into our crew. One that really stood out to me was this one whenever they are doing something, I don't remember. And then, oh yeah, it was when there was an explosion and they all thought they were going to die, and then Mr. Sir cut through the explosion. And he said, "There's no fire I cannot cut." And then he says, "If you'll pardon me, I must rescue my son from the lab." And then Zoro says, "I'm curious about the way a samurai fights. I'm on your rescue team." Okay, so Zoro, very specific. Zoro, who is irritated by everybody and uninterested in everything except fighting, is interested in Mr. Samurai. Not only is he interested in him, but he chooses to fight alongside him, and even at one point turns to the crew and says, "I'm going wherever he's going. What are you guys doing?" In the midst of, we're all about to die, we're all fighting for our life, and Zoro is ready to leave his crew so that he can follow Mr. Samurai? No. there's a connection here, and my theory is that Zoro is going to, that our crew is going to Wano at some point, which is all but confirmed because I'm pretty sure the present arc is called Wano. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So Zoro, I think that the crew is going to go to Wano, and I think that Zoro is going to train with the samurais to learn the samurai way and to improve his swordplay. I feel like Oda is drawing very distinct lines between Zoro and Mr. Samurai Guy. But also, this scene right here, where all three of my swordsmen are fighting together, which initially I'm thinking, I don't need this man in my crew. I already have 2 swordsmen. I have Zoro, who's amazing, and I have Brook, who not only is an amazing swordsman, but also has the power of the underworld, just like my ice guy might have. Is there a connection between those two? And has these icy, awesome underworld powers that I still haven't fully understood yet. So, but we have this scene with 3 swordsmen fighting together, and Oda is very distinctly making them fit so well together with the fighting with heat and fighting with ice and then just being a badass. So I just think he's with us to stay for all of those reasons that was a pretty lame one to end on, really. Why did I end on they fight well together? The things with Zoro, that's the thing. Anyway, I think I may have already mentioned this in the review, but my notes are very scattered for this one because I read through this arc. I read through so much in such a short period of time. My notes are very scattered. But I'm pretty sure I already mentioned that Zoro and Tashigi was awesome. I love their fight with Monet. I love Zoro and Tashigi's dynamic so much. I love their dialogue, their banter, how irritated they constantly are with each other, and I love that they are both such amazing fighters, and I love seeing them fight together. Anyway, I did mention already that I really, it took me so long to care about these kids at all. When they started showing signs of withdrawal, I think is when I was it was hitting me how dark this whole plot line really was, even though I wasn't attached to the kids at all. It was very well written. But finally what got me there was with, I wonder what her name is. Mochia is maybe how you say her name, the little girl that wasn't driven mad by the drug addiction, by the withdrawals, and who was working with Chopper. Her trying to keep the kids back from the candy and then eventually sacrificing herself for the kids so that they wouldn't take any more of the drug was a really, really powerful scene, and I think Oda did a great job with it. And while this one character is really the only character of all the kids that I found compelling, I don't know. I just feel like the whole the kids plot line should have hit me harder than it did, and I just never got that attached to it. Except for this one scene with the sacrifice was really, really, really strong. But I think what this whole baby plot line did the best for me is really putting Chopper on display. This was such a good arc for Chopper. He is such a strong character in these situations where, one, we're fighting against other doctors. The doctor in Thriller Bark, Chopper's conflict with him the whole time was just very, very strong. And then this concept of this doctor who's taking these children and physically harming them, and how deeply that goes against the core of who Chopper is. Seeing him, really Nami as well, stepped up a lot in this arc for just showing her compassion and her desire to help people, which I really love because I do think that Nami is regularly the most selfish character in the crew. So when she does stuff like this, advocating for the kids, or like back in the Knot Island, advocating for Cammy, I really, really love that for these two characters. But I really think that just Chopper shone so much in this, advocating for the kids, fighting for them. And that scene with Manya, the little girl that sacrificed herself, when Chopper was encouraging her and telling her, I'm absolutely going to heal you. Oh man, that got me. But really there were great moments for the entire crew. I've mentioned Nami. She was a great advocate for the kids. And that scene where she was remembering her mom, oh my gosh, so good. Zoro had some amazing fight scenes, as well as some hilarious scenes of just hating Sanji, which is always fun. Usopp is fun to watch so far in these new arcs, in that he's still, like, he's a lot braver and a lot stronger and facing off against people with a lot more confidence, but at the same time he's still kind of himself. Like this scene where he's like, we'll take the stragglers that are running away and injured, and you know, him and Nami, they're pals, and I love their dynamic as well. And he's still the idea man. He's still the one that thinks up how to get out of sticky situations, like when he ended up imprisoning Caesar with the sea stone cuffs. But he's also kind of, I don't really know what to do with his character in fight scenes yet. I really enjoy his fight scenes. I like his new abilities, but they feel sort of boundless. He feels kind of like Mary Poppins, like what's he got in his carpet bag? I really don't know at this point. Anything could come out of there, and we're just meant to go with it. But that's okay, it's fun to read, I don't mind that much. Luffy, of course, has had great moments all throughout this arc, and I've already shown most of them, but I also really want to showcase this part right here, where he does it again. He does it the hello, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, I'm gonna be the king of the pirates again. And then he's just shouting at Flamingo, and it's just, I love Luffy. I love Luffy all over this arc. He's never not great. Brook is a character that has really stood out to me in this arc. He's a character that I really just didn't get very much of before we all separated, and I never really latched onto, other than, you know, his compelling story with Laboon. Other than that, I just don't feel that much for Brook, but this arc has changed that. I still don't think the pervy humor is funny, and unfortunately he's one of the characters that leans into it, but he has some really great moments. What I'm starting to love about him is how polite he is in every, it seems like almost every bit of dialogue that he gets, he's either leaning into the pervy humor or he's being unreasonably polite in situations where he shouldn't. Like when Zoro's being a brat and Brook responds with, no way, would you mind not trying to bully me into these things? I'm like 70 years older than you. He has these really cool powers that I do not understand in the slightest, but they're cool. Seems like I didn't keep the one, I'll see if I can find it in retrospect, but the one where he says, pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt, but it seems like we're all about to die. He has a lot of moments like that where he's just in the midst of chaos. Like his reactions to shocking scenes are so over the top and silly that it's fun, but then also his reactions to chaos and utter catastrophe, just being like, excuse me, I think we're about to die. And it's very polite and very funny, and he's really growing on me a lot. Sanji, I'm determined to find good moments for him in every arc because Oda is just determined to make me not like him in these last two arcs. He's just leaning into Sanji not being that cool anymore. But I always want to find the good stuff because I still like Sanji despite Sanji. So he had a couple of good ones in this one. Two, I really liked when he was underwater, which I showed you a panel of before, but that moment where he goes, is Nami's body strong enough to do this? I don't want to put her under more stress. As much as he irritated me in Nami's body in this arc, he also had some good moments. I really love this moment when chaos is happening and he's mad at Zoro and insulting Zoro, but then the moment they're apart, he's hyping him and he's like, don't worry. He's got us covered. Of course, his fight with Virgo or whatever his name is was so good, and his shin is injured. We didn't do anything with that, which means we're gonna do something with it in Dressrosa. So I don't know what's happening here, but he has injured his leg. So does that mean that he's not going to be fighting as well in this next arc? Does that mean that he's actually going to break something in this next arc? What does it mean? I don't know, but I'm so excited for it. And then my favorite new dynamic that I've noticed and fallen in love with is Luffy and Robin. Oh my goodness. It just seems like in every panel where the two of them are, Luffy is being off the wall and ridiculous and Robin is just smiling. And it's so cute, between him coming in and shouting the wrong thing and her saying quiet about that last part, or them being locked up in sea prism stones and the handcuffs, and Luffy and Robin are just smiling and reminiscing about that time when Robin had them locked up back in Arabasta. They just constantly have these really, really adorable dynamics between them, and it's become my favorite thing to go looking for their dynamics when they're in the same panel. But anyway, I'm gonna end this review on just mentioning that at some point in this arc, they said that the Summit War saga was just a prologue. The fight at Marineford was a prologue, which to me is such a cool promise. You know, at the beginning of the new world, at the beginning of what's to come after Marineford, we're promised that that epic fight that was so intense and incredible was the prologue for what we're in for in this new world. And I think that's so cool. I know that there are some mixed feelings out there about the New World arcs. I know that some people have mentioned that, you know, nothing has lived up to Marineford in the post-time skip stuff, which, I mean, I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about because I've only read two arcs so far in this post-time skip setting, but we sure did have a lot of build-up in order to get to Marineford. So if what we're doing so far in post-time skip is building up for the real war, the one that will easily eclipse Marineford, I don't even know what to expect, but it's a pretty high promise and I'm pretty excited to see what Oda does with it. Overall, I thought that this was a strong setup arc. I think that it was way too long for what it was. Could have been condensed a lot, but we're set up for so many cool things. We're set up for a lot with Mr. Samurai. He's actually the one that I think I said at the beginning, there are some things that Oda set up that I don't expect payoff for hundreds of chapters. He's the one. I feel like there's so much mystery around him. Oda's clearly, to me, established that he's going to be with us for a long time and play a significant role for a long time, and I think that there's a lot of stuff that Oda set up here that we won't see get payoff for a long time. But then there's a lot of immediate gratification that we're going to get as well with the Doflamingo setup, I assume, with the stuff with the zone fruits, the fake fruits that are being created, with, I assume, us going off against an emperor, which is going to be so intense. There's a lot of stuff that got set up here with the chemical weapons, with the I never remembered what they were called. They're not the black market. I can't remember what they're called, but the group of people that were in the room that are buying the fig zone fruits, you know what I'm talking about. All the stuff with them, with the worst generation. There's so many things that were set up here that I think we're going to get really quick gratification from. But then there's a lot of things that are set up here that I feel like we're not going to get payoff for so long, which I think is a really satisfying thing, to have something that's a setup chapter that we get to utilize for so far to come. So I think it was a good arc. It's definitely one of the weaker ones on its own, but it's another one kind of like Fishman Island, which I think was strong on its own. Kind of like Fishman Island, where I feel like Oda's going to be pulling from this for a really, really, really long time. And that makes sense to me because we're setting up the new world. We're setting up what is the second half, it's going to be longer than half, of the series. It makes sense that we need a good chunk of time to lay the foundation, just like we did with Romance Dawn, and then springboard off of that into who knows what, but I have really high hopes. Dressrosa, which I may or may not learn how to pronounce, will probably be split into 3 videos because it's long. So I'll hang out with you for the next 3 weeks or more, because there might be some filler videos because I'm going to have maternity leave soon, hopefully, because the adoption is near complete. Anyway, I'll talk to you about Dressrosa. It'll probably be about 3 videos long, so we'll be hanging out for 3 weeks in Dressrosa. So that should be really fun. I'm really, really excited. This was great setup for it, I think. But be sure to chat with me more in the comments. I post videos every Tuesday through Friday. I'll see you again soon. Bye.